Please listen carefully.
Well, hello, universe, and welcome to the Optimist Daily Update. I'm Kristy Jansen.
And I'm Summers Kristy.
And we're part of the team behind the Optimist Daily, making solutions the news. We bring you reader-funded solutions news every day in order to change the tenor of news media, social media, and help make the direction of your day be focused on solutions.
7 days a week, we publish positive news stories written by award-winning journalists and delivered online to your inbox and through our social channels. And also, we are sharing these solutions in a commute-worthy, walk-worthy, home office-worthy, wash your car again-worthy, because there's pollen everywhere-worthy podcast. Today is Wednesday, the 14th of April, 2021.
I think you're projecting on our audience, Summers, about pollen everywhere.
I think so. I think it might be. But you know what? Projection is just storytelling, isn't it, really? So yes, pollen is everywhere in my life. I guess this is what happens with oak trees. But pollen and pollinators and bees and birds and bugs are everywhere, and my allergies are thrilled. I have not had an ongoing sinus headache like this in many years. I think probably since I first moved to the Santa Barbara area, Kristy, actually, and all those eucalyptus trees up there got me in that first year. Mm-hmm. So yeah, there you go. That's where I'm at this fabulous hump day. How are you?
I'm feeling a lot better than you are, I guess, since I don't have a headache, and that can be a real drag when you feel kind of like that. No, I'm good. I've continued my vegan journey, which I think is contributing to me not having a headache and
yes, for sure.
feeling that vibrant feeling again. So that's where I am this morning.
Good.
And I did have a chance to reconnect with an old friend who I haven't seen for more than this whole year. We haven't been able to be in the same space, and we got together and had an evening outside. Yeah. But it was really nice to see her and just have that kind of reconnection time.
There's just been such a loss for you in this past year of that human connection and those friendships. And even though you got to escape occasionally to your oasis of human contact, I think regular connection and conversation is something that was so deeply missed. And I'm so grateful that you got to have kind of a girls' night and sit and imbibe. What was it? Alkalized?
It was alkaline. It was vodka. So she's also on her own cleansing journey. So she's all alkaline. There's some vodka that apparently doesn't turn into acid in your body. I don't know. Right. I don't believe that. I just had one little glass of that.
Yeah, exactly. And if you believe that, I have some snake oil to sell you.
Well, no, maybe it's true.
Look, moderation is certainly the key. And I imagine that certainly that's better than some choices one could make. So, it's funny, this sinus headache literally does feel like I'm waking up with like a 20-something hangover every day, but I'm not having any of the fun that would come from that. So I wish I was having a $2 Chuck hangover, but I'm not.
Having a pollen head.
Exactly, pollen head. Yeah, my new nickname is Pollen Head. Well, speaking of birds, speaking of birds and bees and pollinators, we've got some good stories on the Optimist Daily today.
So why don't, since you set it up with the birds, why don't you talk about your story first, and then I'll go with mine.
I am going to talk about some seabirds. There is a headline today on the Optimist Daily that reads, "Conservationists build giant sandcastle to encourage sand martins to nest." Now, Amelia pointed out this story to me for two reasons. One, she knows that I am huge into sea life and sea creature conservation. I'm a huge pollinator fan. And she also knows that I have been actively trying very hard to use birdseed to draw more birds to my window at my office. I would like to report that I have been entirely successful at drawing more squirrels. I, at this point, have not had any birds visit my bird feeders. So I perhaps should take a lesson from these brilliant conservationists to attract birds. The story reads that every March, sand martins from the sub-Saharan Africa area migrate to the inland UK and feed until September, when they then make their way back. There's been a natural decline of the inland nest sites in the UK, and the birds haven't nested there in more than 25 years. Well, in order to change that, the Surrey Wildlife Trust has embarked on a new project involving the construction of a 400-ton sandcastle to tempt the migrating birds back to a nature reserve in Surrey, southeast England. Basically, it's just this really amazing 20-meter long structure that will allow for hundreds of the tiny 12-centimeter birds to nest and raise their young at the reserve. And conservationists working on the project hope the initiative will enable the birds to roost together as well as help them find mates. Sand martin numbers have plummeted twice in the last 50 years as a result of the droughts in their wintering grounds in Africa, is quoted James Hurd, the project manager at the Surrey Wildlife Trust. And giving these sweet creatures a nesting habitat in the more urbanized areas under roads and quarries has ceased. So then comes this fabulous, enormous sandcastle for these darling birds. So I love this story. I think it's one of those just people helping creatures and knowing that there is just a long-term value of maintaining habitats for these birds and bringing them back and sort of rewilding in our new era.
And I think this is great. I just recently listened to a long form interview with a researcher who works on conservation of the migrating birds. And it's incredible the amount of land, the geography that they cover. And they spend half of each year bulking up. And then they fly, these little animals, they fly thousands and thousands of miles. And when they're flying, they can't stop anywhere. If they do stop, they have to have like a food source.
Right.
Because it's just such an expensive journey for them on a physical level. And so when they land, they have to land where there's going to be lots of food and where they can bulk themselves back
be
up.
habitable.
Yeah,
really
before
quickly,
they start laying their eggs and actually reproducing. Otherwise, yeah, you're going to get drops in population. So I love this story. This is an issue in China, actually, because there's been so much development there that a lot of the land that used to be like marshland that would be habitat for these migrating birds started to go away. And so that was what this interview was mostly focused on. But I love this. And when we talk about pollinators, we talk about giving sort of corridors for the bees or the butterflies to continue to feed. It's a similar kind of thing with these birds that are flying thousands of miles. They go from Africa to England every year in order to breed, and they bring other biodiversity with them.
Well, I've never been a bird watcher or a birder until recent years, but I am beginning to just fall in love with conservation of birds and really understanding just these huge migratory patterns and the influences that they have on the environment. And Kristy and I were talking a little bit earlier about my kitty cats who have not settled well into the new house because they are stuck inside all the time. But we can't actually let them outside because here where we live, there are actually these massive vultures who would eat them. And I even love the big scary vultures. So
yes. Condors and sand martins and snowy plovers, we love them all.
Exactly.
Speaking
all of the
Sea.
plumage.
Yes, speaking of the sea and the bounties which can come from the sea and these marshlands. My story, I love the story that I want to talk about today. And I'm sorry it's really long and it might end up going long when we are, recording it. But the headline reads, Spanish chef introduces us to marine grains, the new sustainable superfood. And this is a story about Spain's renowned chef del mar, or chef of the sea, Angel Leon, who's an expert at pushing boundaries of seafood. His restaurant, which is in Spain, A Poniente, won its third Michelin star in 2017. And part of it is because he's been so innovative in the ingredients that he has sourced, which brings new understanding of the bounty of the ocean, not just in providing us protein sources or kelp or seaweed, which we've been talking a lot about, but even other kinds of fruits and grains. And this is very healthy, very sustainable. And it's one of those halophyte kinds of species that doesn't take fresh water to grow. What we're talking about is Zostera marina, which is a kind of eel grass, a kind of seagrass. And there's something that Leon noticed, which many others in the Western world, of course, indigenous peoples who were living in areas where they had this kind of seagrass growing or eelgrass growing may have used it before. But in the Bay of Cadiz, where he lives in Spain, this eelgrass, Zostera marina, grows there, conveniently close to where his restaurant is located. And he noticed that there's tiny green grains within the blades, which resembles rice. So he was wondering, I wonder if this is edible. And so
I love the idea of these culinary wizards looking around being like,
yeah,
can I eat that? Can I let's
like,
stir fry that. Let's see how that
you?
does.
Yeah. Would it occur to you, oh, there's some berries over there. Let's see if they're edible.
It wouldn't occur to me, but you know who it occurs to?
Yes.
My daughter.
Yes. Yes. Okay.
Toddlers and food wizards.
Yeah, he decided to do some research and find out whether these marine grains are edible. And lo and behold, they are packed with potential, so to speak. According to Aponiente's research, that's the restaurant, they have found that the grains are gluten-free, they're high in omega-6 and omega-9 fatty acids, and they contain 50% more protein than rice per grain. So they're even more protein rich than other grains like rice. To top it off, it grows outside of fresh water or fertilizer needs, right? It's grown in a seawater marsh type of situation. So Leon set out to create a sustainable supply of this grain to see if he could bring it into his restaurants. And that is what he is starting to do. Turns out that this was an important part of the diet of the Seri, which is an indigenous group of people living on the Gulf of California in Sonora, Mexico. So it's actually a food source that an indigenous group had been using as a regular part of their diets. He's more rediscovered this as opposed to
invented
it. It's more of a rediscovery. But bringing it mainstream, bringing it into our cultivated palette of foods is something that Leon has been working on. He's working with the team at the University of Cadiz. They've been cultivating it. They launched a project to adapt 3 small areas across a third of a hectare in their backyard to create like a marine garden. So after 18 months, the plants had started producing grain. He tasted it because he wanted to make sure it actually tasted good. And it turns out that they are delicious. Taste a lot like brown rice without the husk. Anyway, it's wonderful. I'm super excited about this.
This story reminds me of the story that we ran a couple weeks ago about the breadfruit, right? And trying to figure out ways of more sustainable, because we've just been in such like a wheat and corn and rice culture for so long that there are other tools and other foods, and a more diversified diet would probably be better for us in general. I love this story. I'm pretty excited about this eelgrass grain.
And using this kind of cultivation could actually help lower the carbon impact. Seagrass is capable of capturing carbon at a rate 35 times faster than even tropical rainforests. Right. We were talking about that. We're interviewing Jason Lewis and Tammy Stevens last week, too. It can absorb 10% of the ocean's carbon, even if it covers only 0.2% of the seabed. So it's an incredible tool. It also could be feeding people as well. And it gives new habitat for the aquatic ecosystems in these areas as well. So anyway, I love the story.
A great story. Well, you know what? It was hard to pick today, as it always is, because there's another really fun story. There is a story that reads how speed bumps are helping protect one of Africa's rarest monkeys, how to pet-proof your garden, or in my case, keep your cats inside. Electric company Polestar wants to make a car that is truly zero emissions. Now, this is a good one, and certainly a topic that we've talked about a lot around climate anxiety. But so your kid is worried about climate change. Here's how to address it. What else do we have today, Kristy?
Well, picking up from a story the other day about music and therapy, music education helps children with autism communicate their emotions. An incredibly powerful opportunity there. 3 ways to address post-pandemic productivity fatigue. Oh my gosh, I understand that.
But also say that 10 times fast.
Oh, right. Post-pandemic productivity fatigue. I can't even do it. St. Louis has elected Tishara Jones as the first Black female mayor. And New French policy is mandating more sustainable travel. And that is it for our headlines today on the Optimist Daily. Thanks so much, everybody, for listening to the Optimist Daily Update. Go to the website and read those stories, read more. And we promise to keep sharing these positive solution-based stories every day with ideas on how you can participate in the changing world and help ensure it is changed for the good. We promise to keep covering current events with accuracy, legitimate sources, and offering you the information needed most to help chart new paths for all of us.
Please, please, please consider becoming an emissary on the optimistdaily.com, and for just $5 a month, or $15 or $50 if you're feeling generous, support reader-funded independent journalism like the Optimist Daily. Be part of the solution, changing consciousness and addressing our world's biggest challenges with a problem-solving mindset. Let's keep the Optimist Daily free to all who need it, supported by those who can. Have a great day, everybody.